Thank you everyone for keeping schedule. Across the remainder of the day we have a number of panel presentations where you'll hear speed presentations. I think it's testament to the enormous amount of adaptation going underway to Australia that that's how we have to run this day. Just to give you a full gamut of everything that's underway in South Australia. And beyond that, you have an opportunity to explore what they've shared, this information on the USBs you've received, and all this information will be available afterwards. Please tweet at any time at Climate Change SA, and anyone who tweets will be followed from now on. So we'll be relaunching the Twitter feed and we'll be using it more often in the future. I'd now like to introduce Andrew Inglis as the facilitator for today's first panel session. Andrew is the owner of a mixed farming enterprise in the Mid-North. He is also, amongst other positions held, the presiding member of the State Natural Resources Management Council. Andrew was the obvious choice to facilitate this natural resources panel session. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you, Rowan, and good morning, everyone. I don't know about being an obvious choice, but when I thought about this session, I thought I had a horrible realisation that I've been farming for 50 years, and which is a frightening thought, but it does at least give some perspective. And when I thought about how much things have changed in particularly the last decade, I realised that we farmers, whether we like to recognise it or not, we are adapting to climate change by the way we farm, the way we operate our businesses. So I'm very much looking forward to hearing more about the issue of adaptation. And today we have in this session 4 outstanding speakers. I guess you could call them the usual suspects because they are the people you would expect to present and assist the sort of discussions we're having today. The first of our speakers is Professor Andrew Lowe. Andrew holds the joint position as Professor of Plant Conservation Biology and also Director of the Australian Centre for Evolutionary Biology and Biodiversity at the University of Adelaide. And within JUNA, he heads up the science area within the Science Resource Centre and the Science Monitoring and Knowledge branch. At the university, he leads some 50-odd scientists and technical staff focused on a range of ecosystems, ecological and evolutionary research, and looking at management questions. His key responsibilities within JUNA are to develop a strategic research direction, capability and external linkages within the department. So that's a particularly opposite background for our first speaker. Our second speaker will be Dr. Peter Hayman, who I'm sure is known to many of you. He's the principal scientist in the climate applications at the SARDI, and he's based out of Wake. He's been in that role for nearly 9 years now. Prior to coming to Adelaide, Peter was coordinator of climate applications for New South Wales Ag. His background is as an agricultural scientist with obviously an interest in applying climatic information to dryland and irrigated farming systems. And his focus in recent times has been particularly on adaptation to climate change in irrigated wine grape industries and low rainfall grain industries. He's led the World Meteorological Organisation expert teams on application of climate information in relation to agriculture and leads the Farm Systems component of the Primary Industry Adaptation Research Network. In 2006 he was a recipient of the Grants Research and Development Corporation Seed of Light Award for communicating climate information. Our third speaker, another well-known speaker, is Professor Meyer. Wayne is the Professor of Natural Resource Science at the University of Adelaide. He's the Director of the Landscape Futures Program that's part of the Environment Institute at the University. Wayne came from rural South Australia. He's a graduate of the University of Adelaide. He's had overseas experience, particularly in Texas and in the USA and in South Africa, and is a fellow of the Australian Institute of Agricultural His current research is built around his experience in making science more influential in managing our soils, water and vegetation. And his aim is to help people and communities find new ways to use land and water that is productive and conserves our natural plants and animals. He has a vision for Australian landscapes that are renewable and sustainable. And that's very much in line with the objectives of the NRM Council. Our final speaker is Dr. Douglas Bardsley. Douglas is the Senior Lecturer in Geography, Environment and Population within the School of Social Sciences at the Adelaide University. He's trained as a social geographer, an educator and an agricultural scientist. And his research interests over the last 18 years focused on environmental and agroecological risk management and links between conservation and development, as well as education for sustainable development. And over the last few years, he's been researching climate change adaptation in the Adelaide Mount Lockery Ranges and in the Alajara region of South Australia, and examining the relationship between human migration and environmental change in the Asia Pacific. So you can see we have a great array of expertise and interest within our panel. So I'm going to now just give you a little overview of the interests of the NRM Council in this particular area, and then we're going to have a brief presentation from each of the four speakers, and then we'll open up the session for discussion, for questions and discussion. So again, I remind you to think of questions that you would like to raise. I've yet to think of something more tedious than to start with the presentation talking about the functions under an Act. I could probably read from Hansard or recite the Act itself, but it is important though to understand that the role of the Council is a role of actually oversighting, of auditing, of evaluating the way we actually operate our natural resource management in South Australia. So we don't have a large pot of money. We don't have money. But we do have a very important role in influencing the direction of NRM in South Australia. In particular, we have very strong links into the government of the day. Our role is to advise the Minister, and we also have very strong linkages into JUNA, PIRSA and other agencies that have a key role in natural resource management. One of the most important responsibilities is actually to develop the state NRM plan. Last June, we launched this document, which many of you will be familiar with. The plan actually spells out some of the key objectives that we must meet if we're going to achieve a very robust NRM system. And in particular, from the point of view of today's discussion, it does look at the issue of climate change, its relevance to the landscape, its relevance to communities, and we have made it one of our key subjects of discussion in our process of monthly meetings. And we have within the membership of our council members such as Brian Foster, who's here today, who have a very keen interest on this subject. We also have input from local government, for example, Felicity Ann Lewis is another member of our council. So we are very conscious of the responsibilities in this area, and there are within the family of NRM a large number of activities, which I'm not going to go through them today, that are being undertaken in the interests of strengthening our adaptation to climate change. This plan actually identifies as one of the 13 targets developing capacity and improving information about climate change. One of the things it also addresses in the index is the actual condition of our natural resources, and particularly from the point of view of today's discussion, how well we're doing in developing capacity. The bad news is that this index, this assessment, says that our capacity is not great at the moment. The good news is that it is improving, and I guess that's one of the challenges that we have, to improve our capacity to understand and adapt to climate change. And so we're developing a new reporting framework, which amongst other things will give us a much better understanding of the current condition of our environment, the impacts that climate change will have on the environment, the capacity that we have to respond, and how we can improve that capacity. So we ask ourselves the questions of how well we're doing, and the answer is that, well, if it's a school report card, the young SA would be told they could do better. So we do have to do better. Are we ready? Well, we're certainly developing capacity, and the question then is, are we doing enough, and how are we going to do it? And hopefully out of today's discussion, we will get a better understanding of just how well we are approaching this important, this fundamental challenge. So I'm now going to hand over to the first of our four speakers, and I'm going to invite Professor Andrew Lowe to give his presentation.